What would you do if your house survived a hurricane, only to be accused of causing it? That's exactly what happened to Marcus Bell, a quiet, hard-working man who thought he had found peace in a suburban community. But when disaster struck and the storm passed, the real storm was just beginning. The HOA wasn't just angry. They wanted him to pay $10 million. And the reason? Because his house stood tall while others crumbled. But what they didn't know is that Marcus wasn't just any homeowner. This is a shocking story of how an HOA's greed and prejudice turned neighbors against each other, and how one man's hidden identity exposed the truth. The storm had been brutal. Winds at over 140 miles per hour ripped through the Gulf Coast. Roofs were torn apart, trees uprooted, entire streets underwater. When it was finally over, people emerged from basements and shelters to survey the damage. Some homes were flattened, others completely unlivable. But right in the middle of the neighborhood stood Marcus Bell's two-story brick house, barely a scratch. His roof was intact, the windows unbroken, the walls unmoved. Neighbors stared in disbelief. "How is this even possible?" one muttered. Another whispered, "Something's not right. Why his house?" At first, Marcus thought nothing of it. He was thankful, maybe even lucky. He had invested in reinforced windows, steel hurricane shutters, and a foundation built to withstand Category 5 storms. He had followed the codes to the letter, maybe even gone beyond them. But instead of admiration, suspicion grew. At an emergency HOA meeting in the community clubhouse, whispers turned into accusations. "It's not natural," a board member said. "How could his house be the only one untouched?" Colleen, the HOA president, slammed her fist on the table. "We need answers. If his house redirected wind currents, it might have caused damage to ours." Within days, rumors spread like wildfire. Neighbors avoided Marcus on the street. Some muttered insults under their breath. And then it escalated. A letter appeared in Marcus's mailbox. Stamped with the HOA seal, it read, "Dear Mr. Bell, after review of damages caused during Hurricane Eliza, it has been determined that your home's structural anomalies contributed to the destruction of nearby properties. You are hereby fined $10 million of damages, payable within 60 days. Marcus nearly laughed, until he realized they were serious. The HOA had actually decided that because his house survived, he was to blame for everyone else's losses. At the next HOA meeting, Marcus showed up calm but firm. "This is absurd," he said. "You're blaming me for an act of God." Colleen sneered. "Don't play games with us. Everyone saw your house. Perfect condition. You probably manipulated the airflow, built something experimental, maybe even illegal. And now, you'll pay." The crowd murmured in agreement. Neighbors who once waved at Marcus were glaring at him with folded arms. He tried to reason. "My house was built with reinforced concrete and hurricane straps. Nothing illegal, nothing hidden." But the mob wasn't listening. Colleen smirked. "We'll see you in court." What Colleen and the HOA didn't know was that Marcus Bell wasn't just an ordinary homeowner. He was one of the nation's top disaster mitigation attorneys. For 15 years, he had worked with FEMA, insurance companies, and engineering firms, designing building codes and fighting fraudulent claims after hurricanes. Not only was his house built legally, it was built using methods he helped write into law. So, when the HOA served him with papers, Marcus was ready. The courtroom buzzed with tension. On one side sat Colleen and the HOA board, smug and certain they would win. On the other, Marcus, calm, a briefcase in hand. The judge called the case, and Colleen's attorney argued passionately. "Your Honor, no house should withstand winds of this magnitude. The defendant home interfered with natural airflow and directly contributed to the destruction of others." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting this man caused a hurricane?" "Yes," the lawyer stammered. "Indirectly." The courtroom chuckled, but Marcus stood. When it was his turn, he laid out a 60-page document. Engineering reports, permits, FEMA code compliance records, all airtight. Then he dropped the bombshell. "Your Honor, I am Marcus Bell. For over a decade, I have advised on building codes that save lives in disasters like this. My house didn't survive because of luck. It survived because it followed the very laws this HOA is supposed to enforce. The judge's face hardened. He looked at Colleen. You brought this nonsense into my court? This case is dismissed. And as for you, he pointed at the HOA board, you will pay Mr. Bell's legal fees. Gasps filled the room. Colleen's face went pale. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Neighbors who had once turned their backs now felt ashamed. Some apologized. Others stayed silent. The HOA board members scrambled as Marcus filed counterclaims for defamation and harassment. Insurance investigators also began sniffing around, because many of the neighbors who had accused Marcus were caught inflating their damage claims. Colleen lost her HOA presidency within weeks. Several neighbors faced investigations for fraud. And Marcus? He became a local hero. People began asking him for advice on rebuilding stronger, safer homes. His story even made the local news. Man blamed for surviving hurricane proves HOA wrong. In the end, Marcus's house wasn't just a symbol of strength against the storm. It became a symbol of justice against ignorance and prejudice. Because sometimes the real disaster isn't the hurricane outside. It's a storm of envy, greed, and hatred within. And Marcus Bell? He proved that no matter how hard the wind blows, truth will always stand firm.